What's good, y'all? Fusion here, back with another video. I got Vegas, I got Honey Wheat. What do y'all got to say to the people?
Hello, governor.
Hey, what's going on, everyone?
All right, so today's conversation, referees in professional sports. I just want to start this off right now, just to get this over with. Vegas, you are someone who bets in sports. Do you think referees should be penalized for missing bad calls? And what are some ways that you would help remedy that situation?
Should referees be penalized?
Yes.
I don't know. Like from what we've seen, the NFL doesn't care. They just give out a little a statement. They're like, yeah, the referees missed that call. It is what it is. We're gonna move on. Like, I have never seen a referee actually get punished for making such a terrible call. So in terms of what we could do in the future, or what the NFL needs to do, or what the NBA needs to do, I have no idea. Honestly, if I had to make a bet, cause these referees can honestly be betting on games, or these NFLs or NBAs are fixing games so that they can get the most money out of people. So I don't know. There's no concrete way to point at referees to see if they're actually betting on games or they're just trying to make people lose money. But it is what it is. That's the risk when you do when you bet on games.
So no, is that so they shouldn't be penalized for a bad call?
Nah, I said no.
Honey, what do you think?
It's kind of hard because it's you gotta. So the one thing with referees are all part timers. Most of them don't really necessarily need the income. So I feel like you potentially could either suspend or punish them. But I know that would be kind of wild because they do rely a little bit on that money, and that they also don't make nearly the amount that players do when you suspend them or anything like that. But and it's kind of hard to find a medium. I think they need to. The issue is also people keep saying to move to full time. That's my thing. It's that's a solution, but the issue with full time is that you have the same referees probably in this case that you're translating over. So you have to I would completely get rid of all the referees. I think if you make a bad call, I think it's after a couple bad calls that you could argue are affected the outcome of the game. I think that they should be let go in general. Just because you want it, all these referees have been doing it for 10, 20 years, and the calls won't change until you put in new blood and new set of eyes. Because if someone's biased in a certain way, I guarantee they say that they're not biased, but I guarantee you there's bias amongst the referees. It's
Everyone
impossible.
has biases, right?
Yeah, so it's impossible from that standpoint. But I think what you would do by replacing these referees, especially if they make calls that are very questionable consistently, and you inject new referees into it, maybe make them full time, you might change the kind of bias that you're getting. So you might have more favorable calls for certain teams, currently. For example, Tom Brady gets more calls than someone else that's like a rookie, right? But if you inject someone who's newer into it, that may not have that same bias, the less calls for Tom Brady, etc. So you might change how the calls are made. Now that could affect also that may not be a solution, but those biases could potentially make it less controversial. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you hit a few good points there that I do want to highlight, especially when you were talking about how I feel that they have to only do it in important game altering situations, like when LeBron got fouled. That was obviously a foul, and just like what you said, Vegas, with them putting out a statement, how many more statements will you take? I feel that there should be, if you make, let's just put a number on it, 5 game altering calls that were bad, I feel that there should be a system or a group of people to go through that and go through those 5 questionable calls and be okay, this one wasn't that questionable, but this one could have been either way. This one was a missed call, and I think that they should try to find out exactly what a missed call would be first. I think that has always been the issue in sports, is that
Military stuff.
That boy's ruining the recording.
Why did he just mute his mic? you got on TV over here talking,
Oh my.
Why didn't you tell her before, or need to mute yourself? Listen, this man said, "I'm not gonna mute myself. I'm not gonna tell my birth giver that I'm recording."
Mama.
Just hear in the background, angry black woman in the background.
Now that's funny, but yeah, I just think that there needs to be a overall like consensus on what is a bad call, and then they need to go from there. Because I still think that LeBron James call where he got fouled at the end, of course, that they don't call every single at the end of the game fouls, but because of that, it is not like consistent. And I think that there needs to be some sort of consistency on if we're gonna call holds all the time, like they did with the in the Super Bowl, because like, they don't call that all the time either. So I just think that there has to be some sort of like consistency, like before that we can even talk about some sort of solution, in my opinion. Yep.
I agree. I mean, it's just like I think that's actually the important piece is the word and definition of consistency. I think even if the calls aren't 100%, always there's no way that they're always gonna be right.
Right.
But if they're consistent, where they're following the same like precedent, like I would think it's kind of, you have to be kind of think of it as like courts, right? Where like how courts have a precedent is set by a previous court case. Mm-hmm. So any case that follow that, it should be highlighted. I think at this point in time, you should have enough precedents set from like probably I would say almost over 100 years of games.
Fact.
That you can define what each of these calls means and which ones are called, which ones aren't. Like you look at, so understandably, there's the most like I would think most penalties that could be called that don't get called are holds from DBs, offensive interference from receivers trying to get separation, and offensive line holding. I see a lot of holding that does not get called consistently at all. And then it's almost like it's selective. It's like, because like, for example, me being a Saints fan, I watch a lot of Saints. I watch pretty much every Saints game. I don't think I missed one in a while. I watched Cam Jordan play for 10 plus years. This man gets held every single play. I watched someone's arm come across his neck, and that's a definition of a hold. Because the man is clearly beat, but because he doesn't want to give up the sack, he's holding Cam Jordan by his neck or wrapping him to a point where that needs to be called. But it doesn't get called consistently. But then you have somebody like, I would say, what's another premier pass rusher right now? Like maybe Nick Bosa or TJ Watt. They're going to get a call that may not even nearly as egregious as ones on Cam Jordan, but they'll get those calls more consistently. He get the more obvious calls because there's just no consistency with it. And I think the NFL instructs them. I'm not sure this is appropriate or not, but I think they like the fact that these people aren't perfect and they're inconsistent because one, it allows for trends on Twitter because any publicity is good publicity regardless of talking about your product. So that's one thing it adds, and also it adds to storylines that they might want to keep continuing. So they might have them favor. I don't know if they have them do this or this thing has kind of been implemented where they just favor certain types of calls in certain situations that may look weird to us, but not to the NFL. I don't know. It looks sometimes really weird how they do calls, but there needs to be consistency. That is the key, I think.
Yep, I totally agree. And I sort of feel like that I am about to go off course here, but I do just want to bring this up just real quick. With holding, as far as when it comes in football, I sort of feel like growing up, I was taught like to hold as long as you didn't get caught doing it.
Yeah.
So I think that also is a problem, is that we are taught basically like from kids, like hold and do what you have to do, just don't get caught. And I think once you get caught, that becomes like the problem about, hold on, I was taught to do this and you're a referee, so now that's where all of like that confusion comes from. But we'll definitely have to talk about that at some point because I do want to get to that, talking about AAU basketball and how sports in like youth is like really changing and everything. I think that'd be cool to talk about at one point.
I would love to do that. It's pretty crazy. It's honestly, because you saw that video trend where like those kids were talking trash. And
Yes.
they're talking. People were like, "Oh my god, that's ridiculous." I'm like, man, like if you're gonna lose, I mean, they're gonna talk shit. I'm sorry, you should. I mean, you should. If you're dogging them, I mean, they would talk back to you. So I mean, it's like they're not like. When you play sports, you should come with the notion that you're playing to win or lose, and then that's bragging rights regardless. So it's like that's as a grown man, that's the same way, and I think it should be the same way when you're younger. If anything, it should help you build thicker skin later on, because a lot of times you see these emotional calls occur from people that get mad like that, like that Saints game where Wims hit Gardner Johnson across the face because he said something to him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, honestly, getting trash talked to while you're younger might even be better for you to make it less reactive to something that a player is saying to you or what they're talking about in regards to you or anything that might cause you to essentially have a flare up.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely have to talk about it at some point because so you're right. What do I want to call you? Because I always want to call you Honeyweed or Smurfy. So sometimes it just be slipping up. So do I want to call you Honeyweed?
You can call me both.
All right, both. No, I'm just kidding. But all right, well, this will definitely be a conversation at some point because, I have a little brother. He plays basketball and he's a whole lot better now. But I do feel like because he didn't play in AAU, he plays basketball different than nowadays, how it's all about ISOs and like your dribble move package and layup package and all that type of shit. So, but that's neither here nor there. Thank you guys for watching. What would you do to fix the referee situation? Leave a comment. I'll see y'all later. Peace.